Hi, so I'm live with Dr. Phil Hammond. Thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kish. It's a pleasure.
Oh, cheers.
I've been an NHS doctor for 30 years. I've also been a private eye investigative journalist for 24 years. So I specialise in helping and supporting NHS whistleblowers. So speaking out in the NHS is still an incredibly hard thing to do. But we need these people. We need people in the front line who are not afraid to speak the truth to power. Which is why I'm impressed by Kishan, because he's a young man with his career ahead of him who's been quite brave in speaking out. I'm an old fart, so I can say what I want, and I have private eye behind me. But I like to encourage young doctors who are sort of beginning their careers to feel free and do it. And another reason I was really motivated and inspired by the junior doctors movement.
The government and mainstream media have shamefully portrayed junior doctors as being greedy and well paid.
Dr. Kishan Rees is a junior doctor. I asked him how much junior doctors earn in a year.
Can be between £23,000 £24,000 when they're just starting out, right the way up to £60,000 to £70,000 the day before they're going to be a consultant.
Isn't it really that you don't want to work in the evenings and at weekends?
Absolutely
Isn't
not.
that what it's about?
Definitely not. Absolutely not. We work evenings, we work weekends. I think some of the concerns are there's junior doctors that are working 12 days in a row.
The government have a mandate for NHS care at the weekends after the election. I mean, it's generally accepted that it's not as safe to be in hospitals at weekends as it is. As it is in the week. That's generally accepted, isn't it? And
I would contest that point.
Are you not, as junior doctors, trying to stop that?
I would contest that point that it's generally accepted that it's in terms of the safety aspects at weekends.
Health Secretary has said that the strike is completely unnecessary. Do you agree with him?
Well, the Health Secretary wouldn't be interviewed last night.
That wasn't the question. Do you agree with him? It's completely unnecessary.
I disagree with him then in that respect.
Dr. Rees, very good to talk to you tonight. Thank you very much indeed. I wish you well.
You're listening to BBC Radio Bristol with Dr. Phil Hammond. It's 22 minutes to 10. This month, more than 200 consultants signed a letter to NHS England saying they're deeply concerned by plans for a 7-day National Health Service. A separate research from the British Medical Association found that almost half of all doctors are so disillusioned with the NHS, they're thinking of moving abroad. The General Medical Council also produced a report this week saying they were deeply concerned about morale amongst junior doctors. So what's it like being a young doctor in 2016? What's expected of them? And can they cope with all the pressure? Joining me in the studio to tell me all about it is junior doctor, Dr. Kishan Rees. Hi Kish, how are you?
Hello, Dr. Phil. Very well, thank you.
Which medical school took you?
Leicester,
Okay.
which I'm eternally grateful for.
And now you think it's good to say you're eternally grateful because that suggests you don't have any regrets about it.
Not
Whereas
at
the
all.
research suggests that a lot of junior doctors are having regret and they think the NHS is just too tough a place to work in at the moment.
I think a lot of junior doctors probably feel quite upset about what's going on at the moment. It's back in October 2015, there's thousands of junior doctors marching in London telling people what their concerns were, but it's just a shame that a lot of the media haven't really been wanting to take it seriously and listen to it. And I think what this dispute has showed is junior doctors have an immense amount of talent, and we should be grateful and thankful that they're in our NHS treating patients.
Are we going to recreate working conditions that junior doctors want to be part of, where they feel part of a team, they feel supported, they know if they're in trouble or make a mistake, they will be supported? How are we going to get that back again? Because if we don't, we're going to lose all these talented people who won't want to work in the NHS, and the NHS itself could collapse.
If we lose that generation, it's a disaster and the whole thing will collapse. I'm absolutely sure of it. And I think it's the little things, the job that I work in at the moment, there's parking, there's a fridge, people say hello to you, they're friendly. I don't work a rota that absolutely, rags me like a lot of my colleagues do.
Because a lot of junior doctors said the problem is, at the moment, is we don't have enough doctors to fill existing rotas, and so extending them to a truly 7-day service, which people don't really understand, but stretching out an already inadequate workforce is going to make it less safe. But if you're a junior doctor working in something like
no choice.
Accident emergency or maternity or paediatrics, and already 3 of your shifts aren't filled because there aren't enough doctors, are you just expected to muck in and cover it, even though it's not safe for you to do so?
I've heard reports of people being locked in rooms with HR managers, FY1 doctors, so first year out of medical school, and they're saying, right, you guys decide among yourselves, you're not leaving until the shift is covered.
Right.
So it's, there is a culture of bullying and intimidation and fear.
It seems to me that government has decided this is all the money that's going to the NHS. We can't suddenly pluck junior doctors from trees. So these staff, even if we do train more junior doctors in the future, as Jeremy Hunt is committed to do, we're not going to suddenly solve the problem. So what can we do here and now to improve the life and morale of junior doctors and to stop them from leaving?
So I think we've got to start taking an interest in them and actually saying hello to them. When you came in this morning, you said hello to every single person. You knew them by name. I know consultants that don't even know medical students and junior doctors' names, and it's the basics. Let's get back to basics.
So let's go on to what you're doing
Okay.
in your particular life. So you do medical education, you've done a special degree in medical education. Why are you passionate about that, and what do you do to improve the morale of students and junior doctors through your education?
Okay, so they've all got my contact number. They get kind of 24/7 access to me. I take a real interest in them. We do innovative teaching on WhatsApp. I know them. I remember all my students that I've taught because it's a small group. And I use theories like Sir Dave Brailsford from Team Sky talks about the theory of marginal gains. And we're preparing medical students for an elite performance of finals examinations, and a lot of them need hypercritical feedback in a supportive environment so that they can actually go off and excel. Because let's not forget, they're the brightest talent in the country. They could go off and do anything, and we should be lucky we should feel lucky that we've got them, because they will go on and provide the best healthcare possible. And we really need to recruit and retain this talent, which are leaving in droves.
You're clearly very passionate about this, Kish. I also want to talk about your reflections on the NHS over its 69-year history now, because I know you're making a film about that. We're going to talk about that in a sec.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Kishan is in Lincoln. Current rotas are already stretched. That running a 5-day operation is already close to breaking point.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you have 6 doctors and you're 3 doctors down, it just means the 3 doctors that are left have to work double as hard and carry on the work that their colleagues would do otherwise. So, yeah, there's lots of rota gaps. There are lots of problems with staffing, not just doctors, for nurses. And the other thing that's concerning is I have a lot of European nursing colleagues that are absolutely petrified that they're about to be kicked out of the country as a result of this Brexit vote.
Brexit and health. How do the NHS cope with a mass exodus of staff after Brexit? And how do the EU staff who are already here feel about the result of the referendum? Let's talk to Dr. Kishan Rees, who works at Lincoln Hospital. It's a borough which voted to leave the EU by almost 76%. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's an interesting question, this. I don't quite why we've posed it in this way, I don't know, but there is no indication, is there, that there's going to be a mass exodus of staff as a result of Brexit?
I think that's entirely right, and I think the first thing to kind of bear in mind is scaremongering like a mass exodus is not particularly helpful to discussion or debate, to be perfectly honest. I think what's more likely is we'll see a slow, gradual decline. As a healthcare professional, as a doctor, my concern is you see colleagues that have come over to the NHS to help provide healthcare, and they've been made to feel unwelcome, and they've been made to feel not wanted, and that's no way to welcome kind of international professionals and colleagues that provide an excellent standard of care.
But the idea of the people who are the immigrants who've come over here to work, it's not actually a view on them particularly that's been reflected in this vote, is it? We're not actually trying to make them feel unwelcome. We're just, people have had their say on the whole EU issue as a whole.
I mean, that's another little soundbite, isn't it? There's a few, like Brexit means Brexit, and the people have spoken. As a doctor, I deal in kind of facts if I know them, and I'll say that I know them. And that's something that I haven't really seen with politicians too much. It's been played out in the media in sound bites and little snippets. £350 million on the side of a bus. I think that will have influenced a lot of people because the NHS is very popular and it's almost like a religion. And if the politicians are allowed to say things like £350 million a week going to the NHS, and then the day afterwards they're going to say, well, actually, sorry about that, it could be spent anywhere. Is that really open? Is that really what we should be encouraging?
You're talking about the slow and gradual decline of European workers within the NHS. That's your forecast. 110,000 of them already working in the NHS at the moment. And the Royal College of Nursing has said that, the health service already stretched staff shortages. What would it mean, do you think, for the NHS if we do see that slow and steady decline?
I think it'd be a disaster. Speaking as a doctor, I think I see the rota gaps that these doctors and nurses plug. And if they weren't there, then it would be a real problem in terms of the healthcare that we can tell you. Patients are going to suffer, people potentially have to wait longer, people might not get surgeries and things. I don't think it's particularly helpful that there's a nasty air in the right-wing press in terms of British jobs for British people. And Jeremy Hunt has, to be fair, talked about increasing medical student numbers. But this is an example where government policy is not necessarily directly translating to health, because the new medical students that he's talking about are going to take 10 years to come on tap. So whilst it's a positive step, it's not going to help in the immediate short term.
And as a percentage, if they all left, if every non-British doctor, nurse left your hospital, how many would that be?
Well, in terms of Boston specifically, there's 111 consultants at Pilgrim Hospital in Boston. 16 were born in the UK, 24 were born in the EU, and 71 were born outside of the EU. Wow. So these are consultants that are at the top of their field, they're experts in their area, and they're running the show, they're running the service.
But there's no one's claiming they would have to go.
We don't know. Nobody's come out and said, nobody's come out and cleared, from a government point of view, we don't know either way, do we? Because there's all this talk about they might be used as bargaining chips and who knows, and as long as British nationals abroad are protected, we can't give any kind of confirmation until we know.
Oh, well, look, hopefully we'll find out. Dr. Rees, thank you. Good to talk to you this morning.